again. So this is part 2 of Witchy Wednesday for June 12th to 18th, 2019. And I have never done this before like this, but I'm trying something new because I didn't want to stop the video. I didn't want to have to start again. I knew I was kind of going on at length in the introduction because I really felt I needed to. And I didn't want to you speed through everybody, and so I just thought, well, I'll finish off at Leo, and then I will carry on in part 2, beginning with Cancer, and we'll do Cancer through to Capricorn in this video. So Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn will be covered in this video. Having said that, please, 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 please don't just jump to your sign without listening to the introduction in part 1, because this will not make any sense to you if you do that. All the need to knows really are in that introduction. Okay, so let's move on to Cancer. Cancer rising, Cancer sun, Cancer moon. Cancer moon, this full moon in Cancer, this full moon in Sagittarius is happening for you in your 6th house. And this is the house of the daily grind, of your daily routines, of your health and wellness routines, of how you are in service to others. This is also the house of sort of unequal relationships, right? Where people are not necessarily on an equal playing field. So employer, employee, teacher, student, that kind of thing. And it's so whatever is being illuminated at the time of the full moon for you it involves this area of life. Now, other things may be triggered depending on your personal chart and just because of everything else that's going on in the sky that I spoke about in the intro in part 1. But generally, the 6th house for Cancer rising is what's being lit up for you at the time of the Sagittarius full moon. And so that is like something coming to fruition, having an aha moment, again, about perhaps what began to transpire around the time of the Gemini new moon. It's something reaching, a fever pitch, something coming to a culmination or a close around this time. And that's happening on this axis of the 6th and the 12th house, right? The 12th house is opposite the 6th. And so these areas of life are calling out to be rebalanced at the time of this full moon, right? Those energies need to be rebalanced. They are like opposite sides of the same coin. The house is on an axis, and we need to kind of try to bring things into the middle if we've gone too far one way or the other, right? And so this is about where perhaps your daily grind and your spiritual life are out of balance or out of alignment, right? The daily work tasks, what you do on the day-to-day, whether that be paid or unpaid work, versus how you rest and recuperate and relax, 12th house. Sort of your intentional daily routines around things, including your health and wellness, versus your more unconscious behaviors and potentially self-sabotaging behaviors, which can be the 12th house. It's like your outer life routines, and the inner world, the inner life, and your connection to, something bigger than yourself and bigger than just what you do on the day-to-day, right? So this is what's being called for your attention, or this is what's calling for your attention right now. And you may be seeking more freedom in that 6th house area, particularly with this Sagittarius full moon. And something in the 12th house may be the fly in the ointment that is kind of getting in your way of, or that's at least how you feel, of you being able to achieve that. And, you're not getting potentially enough rest and relaxation. You're not getting the time that you need to sit down and say, how can I make my daily routines work for me? Those kinds of things could be happening for you around now. Or some kind of self-sabotaging behaviors are impacting your health and wellness potentially, right? You want to be healthy, but there's some things that need addressing that you may not even be consciously aware of. So that's what's happening for you, Cancer. And we're going to move on to Gemini now. So Gemini rising, Gemini sun, Gemini moon. The full moon in Sagittarius is in your 7th house of relationship, right? Of one-to-one relationship. The people that you are in close contact with. That can be, and this is like, tends to be contractual relationships of some description. So, living partners, marriage partners, significant others, close personal friends, business partners, even rivals, potentially as well. So that's the house that's being lit up for you at the time of this full moon, and saying, in some way you are kind of seeking freedom and growth and expansion and adventure in this area of life. And it's happening opposite the first house of the self and your autonomy and your individuality and your physical vitality and these kinds of things. So it's this axis of relationship, right? Of we, that's the 7th house, versus me, the first house. And these things may be calling to be brought into more balance at the time of this full moon. There may be some polarity happening there, some tension that needs to be resolved. Again, potentially, let's think here. It could be that you're wanting more, I don't know, adventure in your relationship, taking trips with your partner, that kind of thing. And, but you're not necessarily kind of seeing eye to eye on that, or your physical vitality isn't allowing for that potentially, or, you want to be in partnership, but you're afraid of losing yourself. So these kinds of things can be potentially playing out for you at the time of this full moon, Gemini. And I'll leave that there and move on to Taurus now. So Taurus, we got the full moon happening for you in the 8th house of shared resources, of deep psychological kind of healing, right? Those things that we kind of bury down in there and we don't really want anybody else to see and know about. 8th house is the house of transformation. It's the house of intimacy, where we are vulnerable, and that includes our shared resources. And when I say resources too, oftentimes it's money that gets highlighted. But our resources are like, it can be time, it can be money, material possessions, energy, these kinds of things, right? So keep that in mind. But this is happening opposite the sun in the 2nd house of your personal resources. So like the money you make from the job that you do, your skills and talents. But also the 2nd house governs your personal values, what you value, your self-worth, how much you value yourself, and your material possessions. And so this axis is being called, to take a look at the time of this full moon and where it may be out of balance. And, you may be craving some freedom or an adventure or new learning kind of thing in that 8th house area, but you need to work some things out between the 8th house and the 2nd house that I just mentioned, in order for that freedom to come to pass, or that feeling of liberation to come to pass, right? So maybe you want freedom from being in debt to somebody, or a company or whatever. But you're just not potentially you just don't have the resources, you don't have the money, you're not making enough money right now to kind of pay that debt off. And so that's frustrating on some level. That's just one small example, Taurus, of potentially what could be happening around this time for you. But I'll leave you with that. I've said a lot. I said a lot at the beginning. So make sure that you listen to that. And then this will, make more sense, and it'll put things in context for you. Moving on now to Aries. Aries, the full moon is happening in Sagittarius in the 9th house for you. And the 9th house is about our higher mind, higher learning, right? So not like early learning, like elementary school, even high school, but things past that, or things that we learn out in the big wide world, right? Traveling, foreign cultures, the big picture, our big picture philosophies and beliefs about the world. And this is where you are craving some kind of freedom, growth, abundance, expansion, all these kind of Sagittarius, Jupiterian words. And the 3rd house opposite that maybe there may be a struggle there, and you're trying to you need to regain some balance there so that you can have more freedom in that 9th house area. And so the 3rd house has to do with more of early learning. It has to do with our immediate environment versus the big wide world. So things close to home, short commutes, our neighborhood, peers, siblings, cousins, sort of like the day-to-day back and forth communications rather than the bigger philosophical, communications or beliefs or ideas or learning that goes on. So this is the axis that this is happening on for you, with a highlight on the 9th house, right? And so you need to kind of look at those areas and say, how can I balance this out more so that I can get more freedom in that 9th house area? And you may come to some realization around the time of the full moon that the struggles you've been going through over the last little while have been drawing your attention to this, have been trying to help you get more freedom in this area, or saying, psst, psst, kind of thing, like, this is what these are the messages that I'm trying to bring through for you. Pay attention. And so, as I said at the beginning, it's not the struggles we've been going through. Don't let that be for no good reason. Pay good attention to that, and hopefully something will be illuminated around the time of the full moon for you, particularly in that life area we just spoke about. Okay, Aries. So I'm going to move on to Pisces now. And we've got the full moon happening in the 10th house for you, Pisces. So the 10th house has to do with our public reputation and persona. It has to do with our worldly ambitions, including our career ambitions, and our public legacy, and our material security, and our relationship to authority, potentially even our own authority, right? It's that sort of masculine divine father energy in the 10th house. So this is where the full moon is happening for you. Something is being illuminated here, coming to fruition, maybe aha moments, or gaining some insight, or reaching a crisis point even, or an ending at this time of this full moon. And that's happening across the sky from the 4th house. So that's the axis, and the 4th house is opposite side of that, coin. So it's the divine mother energy. It is our emotional security. The 4th house deals with our home and our family and our roots and our place of living. And the mother energy, right? The divine mother, like I said. And so there may be some imbalance here And it's time to address that at the time of this full moon, and how we can regain some balance on that axis of our chart, and potentially gain some, gain some freedom, have a new adventure, embrace some new learning in that 10th house area of the chart. So that's for you, Pisces. And I'm going to move on. We have 2 more to go. Aquarius is next. And Aquarius, this full moon is happening in the 11th house for you. The 11th house deals with the collective. So groups, organizations, friendship groups. It deals with collaboration and our future hopes and dreams, right? Vision for the future. It deals with philanthropy as well. And so on some level, something in this life area is being illuminated for you at the time of the full moon. You may be craving some freedom in one of these areas that I just spoke about. A new adventure, new learning, something wants to grow, expand. You want some abundance, whatever, in this area of the chart. And that's happening opposite the 5th house of our individual creative self-expression, of, what sparks joy on the day-to-day for us, rather than our future visions, hopes and dreams for the future. It's about children we are associated with in some way, like kind of on a one-to-one individual level, children we work with, rather than kind of like the more philanthropic, if you're like a children's cause, for example, or a humanitarian cause in general, is the 11th house. So something on this axis needs to be balanced out. And the 11th house is being lit up for you at this time. So look to your life and see, where is it that things are out of alignment here, and what can I do, or what's coming to pass now that is highlighting where I need or wish for more abundance, more freedom, more growth, more expansion. And what can I do about that moving forward, sort of thing. And realizing even what has already come to pass in that area, since perhaps you set some intentions at the time of the new moon in Gemini about that, or even further back in the cycle. So some kind of light bulb moment for you in that 11th house area, Aquarius. Okay, moving on to, last but not least in this instance, we've got Capricorn. And Capricorn, this full moon is happening in the 12th house for you. So the 12th house is a more hidden house, right? It's what goes on behind closed doors. It's our spiritual life. It's our inner world, our unconscious behaviors, potentially even our self-sabotaging behaviors, which often are unconscious. How we spend time in solitude, rest, recuperate, relax, these kinds of things, heal, And so this can also have to do with places of, places that are behind closed doors, like hospitals, treatment centers, rehab facilities, nursing homes, hospice, prisons, ashrams, spiritual retreat centers. All of these kinds of things fall into this category, right? And so it can potentially have to do something maybe coming to fruition, culmination, highlighted in that area as well for you, Capricorn, at this time. And you're craving potentially more freedom, involving one of those things that I just spoke of. A sense of freedom, a sense of adventure, and and learning and, you know, truth seeking potentially in these areas. And this is happening opposite the 6th house for you, right? That's the axis. 6th and 12th are opposite sides of the same coin. And so the 6th house is that our daily grind, our daily routines, the work we do on the day to day, whether it be paid or unpaid, our health and wellness routines, how we are in service to others. These kinds of things are the 6th house, right? The daily grind. That's kind of it. And so this may be impacting whatever it is that's coming true, that's being highlighted for you in the 12th house. And you may be in the process of working out an imbalance here between these two houses, that so that you can gain more freedom and adventure and abundance and growth and expansion in that 12th house area. Maybe you're working on, you know, kind of, you could be working on your schedule, like your daily schedule, and in a way that will help you have more opportunity to explore this 12th house area, if that's something that you desire to do. So that's just kind of one example. This can also have to do with somebody who, like on a very mundane level, who works in one of those facilities that I just mentioned. That's your day-to-day routines, right? And there is this kind of imbalance between what you do on the day-to-day and the bigger picture of that, you know, whatever institution it is that you are a part of, are working in. So something needs to come into balance there potentially for you, Capricorn. Okay, so that is all 12 signs, and I hope this worked out for you in terms of the part 1 and part 2, and it was just an easier way to do it for me, and I hope that that's okay with you for this time around. It won't necessarily be like that every time, but this time I had a lot to say in the intro, so that was the best way to deal with it. Okay, so deep breaths, take care, let me know how things are going for you, and I will catch you next week where we will talk about the solstice. All right, so bye-bye for now.